Matt Fitzpatrick stormed onto the DP World Tour back in 2013. With 8 wins and 2 wins stateside, one of them being a major, Matt Fitzpatrick has all of the elements that he's going to be not only a leading light in the coming Ryder Cup, but on the PGA Tour and DP World Tour in many years to come. I take a little look under the belly of his golf swing to find out exactly what makes him tick. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm talking about Matt Fitzpatrick's golf swing. Something I've been really relishing the opportunity to do and share my thoughts with you on what I believe to be one of the most exciting, dynamic golfers arguably on the planet. And I really hope that Matt can kick on and be the golfer I believe he should be. Let's dive into the swing. Setup is very, very different to what a lot of golfers will work on. We can see this golf ball is pretty much back in his stance here, right? And we can see a shaft lean that is absolutely not encouraged by golf coaches around the world. So that's the outlier from face on. The other outlier is how strong the grip is. And it's strong in a way I absolutely love to see. And whilst it looks really strong with the knuckles, let's say, this crease in here is a really big advocate of everything I talk about in the grip in terms of where the pressure is in the pad of the left hand, and you can see that on the right hand side here. This contact point really allows him to, in the way I see, move forwards and develop a slightly different regime of offsetting this strong club face, which I believe he does not to the most efficient way, and that'll be clear as we move on. So let's zoom back out here and talk about Matt's setup further. Unlike Viktor Hovland, Matt has his glute line very much on his heel line. Again, I'm not a massive fan of that. And the reason why you tend to see someone like Matt doing this is because the more he's on the toes of the feet, the more he will feel like he won't hook it. And I believe that that's part of the reason why he stands to it like this. Also, I'm not a massive fan of the handle being so far out. Again, another opportunity missed in getting the handle more underneath him to offset that club face. As I say, we'll talk more about that as we go on. If you haven't checked out my Viktor Hovland golf swing recap, do go and check that out because that's really informative too. Let's have a little look at Matt from below the waist. So below the waist, below the hip line. As we move Matt back on the left hand side here, just look at how we get a real big push with the left hip. So I'm going to draw a little circle around the left hip here and watch how the left hip really pushes itself away from the target. Now that is without doubt going to shut his lower half, and if we look on the right hand side, we can just see as he pushes, look how that right knee just moves forwards. Now for all of those golfers out there that are trying to use your left foot and load into your right foot, this is effectively what is trying to happen with your lower half. So the more a golfer tries to move his weight over here, the more it will inspire the knee line to shut and reduce hip turn, not encourage hip turn. As we then see Matt move back, I then want to pay particular attention to this right hip. So at the moment, he stepped on the gas on the left foot to drive his body in this direction, to create a reaction. And as he moves away, now all of a sudden, by the time he's left arm parallel, just look how this right hip has now started to move back inside of where it started. So as we move back, the hip moves to the right. So that's the big push off with the left foot. And then we now get the right hip more back towards the target, and the left hip is over that left ankle at the top of the backswing. So just to give you a summary of what he's done with his lower half, his left foot in the first half of his golf swing, from his left arm being here to left arm parallel to the floor, he's used his left foot to drive himself away from the target. From the point where his left arm was parallel to the floor, he's now used his right foot to drive energy into his left foot. So as we then take her up to the top, at the point he now starts to pull, the pressure is in the toe of the left foot. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Let's have a little look from down the line here. And as usual, I want a couple of ingredients. I want the glute line and I want the trail arm, trail hand. As we move Matt back, the handle, as per usual, moves back inside. And if again you are one of those golfers that is trying to keep the handle out in front of you, you are missing a trick and you are stopping your hip rotation and your chest rotation moving around you. Interestingly, we start to see Matt really go deep into the right hip here, which is a great move. So we start to see him move back up. This is where things really start to come into their own as far as I'm concerned. Anytime a golfer is keeping the club shaft pointed to the left of the vertical with the handle, they're really giving themselves an opportunity to make that club shaft behave in a better manner on the way down. So we're going to get Matt into the pull phase, and we can see very much unlike Viktor Hovland. So I'm going to take Matt back a few steps and I'm going to zoom in here and take it up to the top. So Viktor Hovland, if you haven't seen that video, do go check it out. Viktor Hovland was across the line. His first move down was his handle went downwards and arguably just a little bit back. Just watch what happens to Matt here. I'm just going to move that back just a touch more. I'm going to get him up to the top, and then I'm going to draw a circle around the butt of the golf club. So the first move of Matt's golf club on the way down, because of that shaft orientation, is the handle moved in this direction, not in this or this direction, which is a good thing. Then I'm going to zoom back out, and the reason why that happens is because of that shaft pitch at the top. As Matt then starts to move down, I'm going to draw a little line on the handle. I'm going to move him down a little bit more. Now just look at how laid off that club shaft is. And as Matt starts to move that handle in his downswing, what we'll start to see is the shaft steepen up. So the handle has gone, has gone from the first green circle to this green circle. So the handle has moved in this direction. Once again, has moved forwards, not down, has moved forwards. The directly in between, straight down and straight forwards. Unfortunately, the whole world out there is encouraging this, and we need to be encouraging this travel with the handle. And as Matt then starts to get this shaft steepening up in the downswing, so the shaft is steepening up because where it was laid off, as we go up to the top, look how laid off the shaft is here. So it's pointing a long way to the left as he pulls the club. So the shaft is pointing a long way to the left. As he then moves down, look how the shaft has steepened up. Now all of the time the shaft is steepening up, it means that the loft of the golf club is trying to point more down to the ball line. And as that happens, with a strong grip, that is going to be quite hard work for Matt. And so what he does to offset that on the left-hand side is he tries to create as much leverage, as much angle, and as much pull on the golf club to offset the fact that the club face is feeling really very strong. And so as he starts to move down, the angle in which he creates between left arm club shaft, which is never talked about in Matt's game, it's arguably more than Sergio Garcia. But with Sergio, he has less wrist set at the top. Matt just has more. Now, whenever you have someone with a strong grip, you tend to have way more opportunity to create more lag and load in your downswing. So if you want more lag and load in your downswing, you need a strong grip. So as the club then starts to work down into the strike here, and I'm just going to catch this one up on the right hand side, just look how out and forwards Matt's handle is. Now if you saw my Victor Hovland video, I did exactly the same. They're in exactly the same spot in this delivery position. They both have strong grips, but Victor uses the club face and the handle, should I say, different to Matt. So on the left hand side, Matt also has a bent left arm, the same as Victor Hovland. As we then start to see them both come through here, what we saw with Victor Hovland was a handle that went to the left and down. Matt's has stayed high and moved along. I'm not a fan of this. And this is why I believe, or where I believe, that Matt needs to be changing the evolution of his golf swing. The way I see it, the way I see him working on his game, is he's trying to create more and more load in his downswing at this point, and he's not focusing enough on keeping the shape of his left wrist through strike. If he created more shape in his left wrist and returned the loft back on the golf club that he's got here with this cupping of the left wrist, and he didn't get rid of it, he would then not have such a shut face, and he wouldn't then try to lift the handle up and move it along, which I'll come back to in a minute. So the difference is that because Matt has made this angle here not retain itself as he's unloading the golf club, which I've talked about in my swing, in one of my videos, Power at Impact. If he created that, two things would happen. He'd add more loft on the golf club, and he'd get a straighter left arm through strike, which is not the be all and end all, but it'd make a straighter left arm, and he'd be able to come back to strike with more loft. And when Matt then has more loft, he'll then launch it higher. He's a very low ball hitter because he's got such a strong angle of attack. But look, all of these ingredients are working for him, but in any tour player's mind is, where am I going to? How can I get better? How can I create something that I haven't got? Matt is a low ball hitter, hits it a long way, wants more flight though. And so as we now go back to the down the line video, and we pull Matt back into delivery, we'll go up to the top. There's the pull forwards with the handle. There's the extreme load. When I draw a line down through the handle, just watch how the handle of the golf club goes very much along. And we even see the right hand come off the golf club because it goes so much along, because the right arm is so stretched. And then we come on to a point in the golf swing where we start to see people talk about flip, release of the golf club. Now Matt is a seriously hook grip guy. He has created loads of lag and load in his downswing. And the symptom of all of those ingredients was to stop it going left. And he's done that. He's kept the face open. So much so that he then has to roll the face a little, shut after strike because of that. Again, if he took this ingredient out, he'd be worse for it. So if you're working on not flipping and rolling, you're working on the wrong thing, because that is a symptom of something else. So then when we come back, and I want to just talk briefly on Matt's leg action. So because we're moving a golf club from over here to over here, we are always going to see some form of motion with the lower half towards the target. Just purely from a mechanics perspective, if you're moving a load or an object quickly from one side to the other, you'd be superhuman not to have some sort of lateral. But as soon as he starts to move, now watch the left hip. Look how the left hip has gone back. Left hip has not moved towards the target. It is now offsetting the huge amounts of pull that Matt is making towards the target. He has to be, because the pull is creating this leverage that he's using to stop it going left, because he's made his left wrist change and fall out and shut the face down. And so at that point, he then has to create some form of leverage to stop the ball going left, which is why he's got this huge pull through strike, this huge load in the downswing. But his lower half is offsetting that, is pushing back, which is why we see the pelvis open up so aggressively. But we don't see any lateral through strike. Once again, we see a left leg that is back of the ankle, and it stays back. And now look how the right shoulder starts to fire forwards. And so the left hip moving back is an accelerator of the right shoulder coming through. But understand, this is a network of ingredients that work for Matt. But I feel there are massive improvements that can be made. I really don't like this image on the right hand side. This is someone that is really going to be a streaky player in my books. I think he's got more in him. I think better swings in him. But anyway, I thought I'd share my views. I hope you found that useful and insightful. If you've liked it, do hit the like button and share, and I think you'll find it's good coaching.